Let's talk about Lena Wiberg. Lena started out as a bright-eyed developer in 1999. After a decade of code, she found testing, and later in 2017 she moved into management. The skill set gained from building and testing software also works wonders when making people, teams, and organizations grow. She believes in continuous improvement, keeping up to date, and always challenging ourselves, our assumptions, and the way things are done. She is also an avid blogger, speaker, and facilitator, and also a creator of Would he risk it card deck. She is currently working as an engineering manager at Mentimeter. Wow, there's a lot of going on with you. And about the Lena's talk today, daily, we are pushing the boundaries of how fast we can deliver software, constantly running on a knife's edge between great success and horrible failure. Delivering something new, better, faster than our competitions can mean incredible payoff, and we are constantly being asked to cut costs and deliver more, faster, and cheaper. But then, suddenly, you fall off the other side of the edge and wake up to 189 dead in a plane crash, or having to take down and redesign your entire banking service because the architecture didn't hold up the load. It probably wasn't your decision to push that to production, but one can imagine that long chain of people have to have made a number of small or huge decisions that led up to that result. Please let's welcome Lena Wiberg, delivering fast and slow ethics of quality.
Hello. Basically, you got the too long didn't read of my presentation in that presentation, but let's see if I can expand a bit on what I mean with the different parts. So, as was mentioned, I started out as a developer. So I built software for 11 years before I found testing, which is a different kind of challenge. And for the last 5-ish years, I've also worked more with building teams and people. Engineering manager currently at Mentimeter, that I hope a lot of you know about. And if you don't know about it and want to know more about it, just connect with me on any social platform and I can tell you more. So I would like to start sharing hypothetical problem that a team faces. So in our team, we have Ian, a junior developer. We have Sam, who is our senior tech savvy code ninja. We have Alex, who is our business analyst. Morgan, our tester. Kim, our project manager, and also connected to this team, we have Chris, who is actually our user. So it all starts out with Sam in this case. Sam is a real techie, loves trying out new things. So Sam picks up a feature that allows her to try out a new framework and a new tool. But she gets a bit caught up in trying out this new tool. So in the end, we end up with technical debt because Sam has to do a quick and dirty solution to have something done in order to move the project forward. Sam and our business analyst, Alex, they like to pair and discuss different solutions to problems. And as you all know, in Agile, we value personal conversations over documentation. And Sam and Alex are a perfect example of this. They decide to change a bunch of things in a feature, but they forget to document what it is they changed. So the result is that different people in the team have different ideas of what this feature is actually supposed to do, and the solution we chose to do it. Q, Ian, our junior developer. Ian is new to the team, and I don't know if this is an international thing or just in Sweden, but in Sweden you have a pretty long probation period where you could actually be let go pretty easily. So Ian is a bit afraid to lose his job, actually. So when Ian doesn't really understand how to implement a solution to a feature and really doesn't understand the framework chosen compared to what the user story says, he doesn't speak up, which means that the actual implementation turns out to be slightly off. Morgan, our tester, finds this problem when testing and goes to talk to Kim, our project manager, about this, but they agree that this is probably a very unprobable edge case. So Morgan decides that I'm only a sharer of information, I don't make decisions. So I gave Kim this information, Kim chose not to go forward with it, so I'm just following orders. Kim has this huge project and the responsibilities around it, and Kim decides that the cost of delaying the project would be so big that he thinks the risk is worth it to just release this into production. So Kim actually hides this potential bug from the board, and the bad bug goes into production. And then on the other hand, we have Kim, our user of this new software. The effect for Kim is that Chris's data is leaked because the bug happened to be a security bug. So someone gets access to Chris's data. Of course, we all know users don't do what we tell them to do. A lot of people out there aren't as tech savvy as we expect them to be. So Chris is reusing username and password on other sites. So in this hypothetical scenario, Chris actually gets her identity stolen. And as I said, this is a hypothetical team, it's a hypothetical project. But I think we can all agree that things like this happen all the time. So what is actually the worst that can happen? Well, hopefully you've heard about Boeing 737 MAX 8S. The result in this case was more than 300 people dead. It started out in 2010 with a competition saying we're going to release a new cost-efficient airplane. And Boeing panicked and rushed production of, or actually an adaptation of an existing model, a very popular model, where they basically made bigger engines. Bigger engines meant they had to shift where the engines sit on the plane. Shifting the engines meant that the plane was a bit unbalanced. So to solve that, they introduced software to actually correct the angle of the where the nose is pointing. Since this was rushed, they also skipped training the pilots adequately. They pushed all of the paperwork that needs to be done, all of the analysis, all of the reports, everything was pushed. And it ended up with 2 planes with, in total, over 300 people dead. Airbus, as I mentioned, was the competition. In this case, no one has died, I hope, but they had a software bug that required a specific model to be turned off and on again every 6 days. because they had an internal timer that was slightly off. And the cost of fixing this problem was so big that they choose to just reboot the airplanes. Makes you feel safe to fly, don't it? And then, of course, we have things like the Mars Climate Orbiter, where one part of the software was built using the imperial system, and one part was built using the metric system. This was missed in testing, and as a result, literally, this was lost in space, costing about, I think, $550 million or something like that. In Sweden, we bought journaling system for a particular hospital that couldn't handle Swedish characters, which meant that their journaling system and all the connected equipment froze when they entered Swedish characters. And you might say, well, I don't work with hardware. I only work with banking systems. Well, I just added these today. Australia introduced robotic debt collection, which turned out they missed a few use cases, so they have had to repay a lot of money. Or we have the Robin Hood incident where a student mistook a huge debt and took his own life. So ethics is something that we really need to care about when we build software. And I'm going to talk a bit about 10 Commandments for Ethical Techies by Fiona Charles from Quality Intelligence. And it starts out with, we have to understand our professional obligation. So if you are a tester, your professional obligation is to discover information and pass that on to someone. If you're a developer, it might be to develop safe, fast, good architectured software. It's depending on your role and depending on what you're actually hired to do, your obligations might change, but we need to understand what it is. We also need to know our actual legal and contractual obligations. So what's stated in your contract? But also, are there laws and regulations or standards that you're expected to know and follow? I hope we all know about GDPR. I don't say that all of us should know all of the details, but we should know enough about things like GDPR to be able to know when we are implementing something that's actually not legal. And then on an individual level, we also need to know our own bottom line. So what is the line that you are not prepared to cross? What lies are you not willing to tell? And how far will you take that? Will you hide a potential bug because you don't think it's probable, or you don't think it's very important, or do you just think no user would ever do that? So think about things like, what's the worst thing that can happen to you, but also to someone else? And then you need to understand whose interests is it you actually serve. So if you're building X-ray machines, you're probably serving doctors and patients rather than whatever board is expecting to make money out of this. If you're building a voting applications, your true users are the voters and the governments, probably not the company that expects to make money out of this. We also need to know what harm can our software do? And this is both what's the actual worst thing that can happen, but also what's likely to happen. So if we always skip on security, what harm can getting access to that data actually do? And when I started out, this was easier than today because you knew all of the bits and pieces that in total was the ecosystem of your software. But today we use so much algorithms, components, frameworks, machine learning that we actually don't know exactly what they do and how to test it. We collect so much data that we then use for monitoring and analysis and marketing and all of the things. So how can this data be misused? And you can think about things like Cambridge Analytica, which sounded like a great idea, but was then used for bad purposes. So we need to maintain critical awareness of our whole work situation. That means our application, our data, the ecosystem the application lives in, but also things like the company. What are their hidden goals? Think, for example, Volkswagen. Their open goal was not to hide carbon dioxide results, but they were prepared to do it. And we also need to keep up to date with existing ethical problems, such as bias in machine learning that could cause your application to be racist, or data bias, which could mean that your automated recruitment system that's supposed to remove bias actually says no to all women. It could be bias in how we build our user personas. It could be all of the things, and we need to at least have somewhat of a knowledge about all of these things. And then we come to things like we need to be good at saying no. And I'm a mother of teens, and I can tell you when I started thinking about this, we raise our kids to say yes. We tell people that they should be positive, they should comply. So as a result, what I see is a society of people who avoid saying no if they can. But we should actually train ourselves in saying no. And also be good at speaking truth to power. And as a tester, I've often been not the most popular person in the room because I'm always seen as the person who comes with problems and risks. And but we really need to learn how to do it, because we can't hide behind I only followed orders, because things can really go wrong. And in order to do this, we need to know how to escalate things. So if something is truly important and the project manager or our manager or whoever we try to raise things with, if they say no, we need to know how to escalate that. It could be to manager's manager, it could be to the boardroom, it could be to the newspaper, depending on what you're doing. But also make sure that we only escalate things if they are truly important and not every potential risk that we see. And then know our own tolerance for risk. So what is the actual risk of raising this issue or pushing for this bug to be fixed? Are you risking your job? Are you just risking your reputation? Or are you risking someone's life? And this goes both for what's the risk of doing this, but also what's the risk of not pushing for this? What is the worst thing that can happen? And then decide if my tolerance for risk and the things that can happen, if they are not balanced, then maybe you shouldn't be building airplane software if you're not willing to lose your job in order to make sure that that airplane doesn't crash, at least not for software problems. And then as a bonus, make sure to document things, keep a paper trail. So when I send out these slides, I encourage each and every one of you to take this slide with the collection and print it and have it somewhere, because I think these are questions that we really need to think about constantly. So we talked a bit about a hypothetical problem. We talked about what could be the worst thing that could happen. And we talk about ethics. And then I want to move into the part about being pushed to deliver more, faster, cheaper. And I want to do that by talking a bit about Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow, which has nothing to do with building software, but everything to do with how our brain works. So basically, he says that as humans, we are governed by two systems. We have system one, which is automatic, fast, impulsive, makes assumptions. And this is what we use for most of our daily tasks, things we do every day, such as finding our way home on familiar roads, calculating basic things like 2 + 2, or recognizing friends. And then we have system two, which is conscious and slow and aware and considerate, but it also requires a lot of energy and effort to use. So we can't use that in everything we do, because then we wouldn't be able to do anything on a daily basis. But we use this for things like analyzing complex problems or doing harder math exercises than 2 + 2 or crossword puzzles. And system one tries to conserve energy by tricking us into making quick decisions. So why is this relevant to us? Well, system one, as I said, tries to save energy by reusing things and making assumptions, and it likes familiarity. So when we are solving problems by using system one, we will tend to reuse old solutions. So last time we built an application like this, we solved this problem by doing this solution. Therefore, this is the right solution. Which is not the best if you want innovation or better solutions. System two, when you connect it, thinks about new and better ways of doing things. So I want us to think about why we want to deliver things fast, because there is a good reason for delivering fast and there's a bad reason for delivering fast. On one hand, we know that small deliveries equal low risk. We want to fail fast because we want to learn fast. We want to be able to react to changes instead of having to redo the entire application. We want an even flow in our software delivery. But we could also use the same reasonings for cutting costs, being first on market, constant pressure on our agile teams. So basically, we have the agile values, we have the team value, we have customer value versus money, versus increased sales or speed to market. And one of the ways that we've tried to solve this is by doing cross-functionality. So basically, we want everyone to be a Swiss Army knife. And in some contexts, that's all good, because you don't want 200 different tools if you only need a Swiss Army knife. But Swiss Army knives are great if you're camping, but it's not very good if you're building a house. So we need to find the balance and remember that Agile talks about cross-functional teams, not particular cross-functional individuals. So we don't need all of us to know everything. Because with switching between different roles comes also context switch, which removes flow, and it takes energy to do the switch. But on the other hand, handovers also remove flows, and introduce weights and slows down feedback loops. So the balance, we really need to keep the balance. And I mentioned all of these frameworks and libraries and algorithms, which is awesome because today you can build so complex systems reusing parts that someone else already built instead of inventing the wheel again. But it also means that we might not know how everything works. So if something breaks or doesn't work the way we intended it, it's harder to know how to fix it. So, summing all of this up, planes don't crash because of one big bad decision. It happens because we made a bunch of small bad decisions along the way. So I want you to think about being fast or slow for the right reasons and push back if you feel we're doing it for the wrong reasons. And in order to do this, you need to know your bottom line so you can act when you reach it. Otherwise, you will freeze and you won't know how to react. And never blame your bad decisions on someone else by saying things like, I was only following orders. And if you're in the position where you can pressure others into making bad decisions, please don't. And I believe we are all responsible for our own actions. But I also think that we are responsible for calling out other people's bad decisions when we see them happen. And ending on a bit of a bad note, we all take liberties with the truth all the time. We all hide parts of the truth or even lie, straight out lie. And it might be because we believe it will cause more harm than gain to actually say everything we believe. It could even be to protect someone that you care about. Or it could be out of fear, or you want to gain something by not telling the entire truth. So we are constantly making these kind of risk assessments, and some of them will be wrong. So I want you to think about making sure they are not the important ones and that the reasons behind are not malevolent. Thank you so much. If you have questions that you don't want to take in the Q&A, I'm happy to talk by. You can email me, you can tweet me, you can find me on any social media.
Hello.
Hello.
Is it possible that you could stop your presentation so we could see? Yes, we could see your lovely face. Nice to meet you. And we have actually a lot of questions for you. But first, I would like to give you all the thanks that we got via stream chat. Great that Lena mentioned it, the risk of losing reputation. Great talk. So important to talk about the technical, ethical part of our job and the responsibility that we have. And it goes and goes on with the thanks. But this is actually, the topic is very important, but why do you think that ethics are so under-discussed in software development?
The quick answer would be because it would cost someone money. And also, we like solving technical problems, or at least someone believes that developers like to solve technical problems. So we focus a lot on that.
Yeah. Who should lead the discussion? Do we have
all of us?
Yes, because there's always the money talks goes with the bosses and the leaders. So should we take a part as a developers in this ethics discussion?
Yeah, I really think we should. And I think everyone should, regardless of where you are in the hierarchy or in the team or outside the team. We are all responsible for these questions.
Yeah, but as you know, some younger or less experienced developers have a harder time saying no. Do you have any tips that you could give to somebody newbie about the career, and if they want to be ethical at the work, is there any way to be ethical on the?
So I hope that one big shift will come with how we actually manage teams and companies and organizations. So the shift in leadership from the very much kind of factory frame leaders telling someone what to do to more of a servant leadership will be one big shift. But I also think that it's take those 10 commandments, read them, understand them, and then start trying small no's. Like, no, no, I'm not going to do this in 8 hours. I need 2 days.
Yeah, that's a good, that is a really good point. And next question. What has been the hardest decision, situation, or discussion that you have had where things have not gone in an optimal way? Can you share?
So a lot, of course, I can't talk about details, but I have left a few companies because I felt that the way we were doing things weren't either they were unethical or they were bad for the staff, basically. And those were hard for me because it means that I remove myself from the situation, but there are other people who are still there. So that's something that I have a bad conscience about sometimes, that I left people in this situation instead of kind of trying to change it. But I think GDPR, when that happened, was one big ethical discussion. So
yeah, that is good.
How do we do this in a way that's feasible but still ethical?
Yeah. So the law is helpful in a way, not always just the negative things, but it brings really positive things on the way. How do you include ethical considerations into normal development flow? You can't make an automated check for, is this ethical? Is it something that it's constantly in your head, or do you have some kind of to-do list or?
So it's been a few years since I actually built software, but when I was still building software, I tried to always think about how can this be misused. And for me, it's been data. I mean, data is the biggest concern because it's so easy. People can get access to your data almost. Whatever you do, someone will be able to get access to the data. And how can they use this data? That has been, so for me, it's been just constantly having that on top of my mind. I also like the concept of, I think they're called evil user personas. So if you using personas, you can have like the hacker persona or the person who wants to bring down your company persona, and then you do use cases based on those as well.
Yeah. And I think there's a really big matter to that you belong to community, or you have a team or group where these values are always on the table, and you have people that you can talk about that. I'm leading the community of 7,000 women and non-binaries and allies who are really interested about the ethical matters, and we are constantly having a discussion about how these newbies that we are training to become a talent should take care of these things. So we have hope a lot, and it's nice to see that we have had also in Ruby community a lot of discussions around this topic. Our future looks better, as Mats said, we are building a better world. one question still here. Paper trail, is that tip to keep it public in the company for accountability?
If you're comfortable having it open, then sure. But if you're not, at least make sure you have it somewhere so you can access it when you need it.
Yeah. And still, we have time, so let's take these questions. Could it be that the probation period is kind of discouraging people to speak up?
Yes, but I also think that if we didn't have it, it would be even harder for companies to recruit non-seniors, because they would be even less prone to take risks.
Yeah.
So I think it comes with both good and bad things.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Amazing. Thank you for all your troubles. We are having lots of applause and thank yous in stream chat, and I'm hoping that you could join the stream chat, but at least the Discord discussions later on with this topic on any other topic. Thank you, Lena, and I will now let you go.
Thank you, and have an awesome continued day.
I love your eyeshadow.
Oh, thank you.